Hey, it's Chris, and welcome back to the Startup Series. Today, we're going to be talking about how you can structure your financial position in the best way possible. So, no matter if you have a little bit of money or you even have investor money coming in from the whole range, what's the way you want to structure what you have to put yourself in the best case scenario to launch your business, start making revenue with your business? So, everybody has some kind of asset pool. This is going to be your total assets. For this example, we're going to say this is $10,000. And I'm going to be using a really normal case scenario so that you know that if you're in a better position, that you will have an easier time than this. And this is still possible, even with what I'm about to show you. So let's say you're not living at home and your rent is 1.8 a month. Your car is, let's say it's 450 a month, and let's say food, food and going out because you also need to have a life, and if you have a girlfriend and stuff like that, let's say that's 1,000 a month for all of that. So this is 3.25 a month, and I'm assuming this is a pretty normal situation here. This is not crazy. And what do you need to make 3.25K a month? 36, 38, so just under 40K a year. So if you're with taxes included, let's say you're making 60K a year and this is your annual income. So you have 60K a year and you have 3.2K a month in expenses. And that leaves you with 39, so 21 after tax. Let's say you have 10K a year. You have 10K a year to use towards vacations or use towards upgrading stuff in your life or whichever you want. So you have technically a free 10,000. You could put into the stock market, you could save, you could do whatever you want with it. Free to save or use. So this is a pretty normal person, 60K a year, pretty normal expenses, and 10K a year. You could even round it down, round it up, whichever you want. But if you have 10K a year, what should you be using with this number? Let's also assume that you already are 1 year ahead. You would probably have some kind of savings. So you have 10K. Now, what do you want to do with your first $10,000? So you wouldn't want to obviously go put it all into an endeavor and have it not work out, although you could. And this also has to do with a few other things too. Actually, I'll add those variables as well. You have your age and a factor of time. Because if you are older and you want results sooner, then you have less time to accomplish what you need to do. And let's say you have goals to hit within 1 year or 2 years, you'd have to go all in with what you have. There wouldn't be any other kind of space to play around with your goals here. So you would have to put your 10K entirely into your endeavor, your startup, your business. And you need to be okay with that because every year, if you just did nothing different, you continued with your same lifestyle, the next year you'll have another 10K to use as you want, as you please. Now, you can repeat these steps every year for 5 years, and you could put this into coaching, investing, and all this stuff. Now, if you're in your first year, you've never been into business before, I wouldn't put 10K all into a startup. I would actually do a little bit less. I would put the 3K into a startup, and I would put the remaining 7K into coaching and training and education and learning. And I'll tell you why in a second. So this is going to be split two ways. One goes towards startup, one goes towards, all right. So you're going to see here that it's split kind of 70-30. And the logic with that is that you don't have any skills at this time. You have an idea, you have a business that you want to launch, but you don't have skills. What skills do you need to learn and have to launch a business? The first one, nowadays, I mean, skills building a good product. That's something that everybody likes to work on and focus on, go to school for, web dev and coding on your own and so on. You also have marketing, which also has a ton of sub skills. You have sales, which also include a lot of sub skills. And you have subcomponents to these skills as well, which actually I'm going to make in a different list. So within product, you have quality, you have feedback gathering, you have development, you have a business ecosystem, and so on and so forth. At the beginning, these are the ones that are the most prevalent ones. And next, for marketing, you're going to need to know how to do social media, whether you like it or not. These are not really negotiable anymore. You're going to need to know how to do paid ads. This would be through Meta, Facebook, Instagram, or Google. Don't use any other platforms when you're first starting out. The next thing in marketing, you also want to learn how to do framing. And essentially, framing is giving context before people take action. You need to learn customer journeys. You need strategy. And you need analytics. And there's actually a lot more. Some of these even have further subcomponents. But for now, this is what you should be focusing on most of the time. Next, we have sales. And this is what you're going to learn. You're going to learn tonality, follow-up, structure is also, you could use the word cadence for that, scripts, and how to close. So you're going to also need to learn a lot of sub skills just to get sales going. And you could pay to learn all of these individually. Sometimes you can learn them all in one shot. And some of these even have further, like I was saying earlier, some of them have further micro skills that you're going to need to learn. So the less of these that you have learned or acquired, the more you're going to need to acquire them. So if you don't have, let's say you have product quality, let's say you have a great product, you're still missing every single other part of what it takes to have a successful business. To get that dollar from, I also actually use this analogy in another video too, but if you were to use this analogy of you have a bridge you want to take clients in. So for example, let's say this is you here, you're this is a client actually, and this is where you want to take them down. You want to take them down the road for them to give you money to transact with you, finish the whole process. So what does that look like? That actually looks like that you have a bunch of pillars that you need to take up. This looks like that you have a client that needs to be taken down this path from awareness to consideration to negotiation and to then closing the sale. Now, these pillars, what supports your actual structure of taking this client over this bridge is these three areas I just spoke about. You have product, you have marketing, and you have sales. You can't sell anything without a product, and you can't sell anything without sales, and you can't get anybody through the door without marketing. You need all three to work together to actually have a business. Because if you're missing one, then the bridge would collapse and you wouldn't be able to get anything through the door. You need to have all three, and all three support each other. So if you don't have the skills in any of these areas, you should have no other focus in any other area than to just get more skills. Until you master everything pretty much putting here, you should not be putting that much more into your startup, because you're going to learn through what you invest in your startup. You're going to learn how to maybe work with freelancers. You're going to learn sales process. You're going to see how other people do things. Maybe you're going on YouTube and stuff like that. But then you also want to consider your age and your time, because the older you are, even if you're 30 years old, you don't have that much time to get things going, to get things started, which is why you pay to go faster. And you can pay in time or in money. And that would depend what you care about more. I'm going to put it here because it's important. You can pay in time or money. So if you have a lot of time, by all means, you can waste it and be inefficient and do whatever you want. But you can only pay in these two ways. So if you're comfortable wasting your time, and I say wasting because it's a waste of your time if you're not getting the results as soon as you can, and you know that you could, you might as well just have the results in the life you want sooner, which also stems through a lot of things. It means that you also probably don't have a lot of urgency. But besides this fact, you need to get down and get all these skills you need to be able to get up and launch successfully. So you will have this feed into your skill set, and you will have your startup feed into your skill set as well. All right. So I hope this is clear for you guys, and I hope that you can see the trade-offs you're making by not taking action and delaying things. Now, let's say that you have put 3,000 in your startup. Where would you put them first? Because it's not going to be going into skill set. Now, what do you want to prioritize? Now, you're going to also want to fill the gaps with what you have. What kind of skills do you have? Let's say you have skills in, we'll use something really common. Let's say you have web dev skills. Even just because you have web dev skills also doesn't mean you can build a good product. Even though you can build out a website, you can build out the solution, it doesn't mean that you know how to build a good product. There are still other sub skills within that make a good product. And it goes far beyond the idea and stuff like that too. Now, what are we going to solve by doing that? With the 3K into your startup, you want to put it into the highest leverage aspects of your business. So let's say you have a background in web dev. You would want to assign the money. Your background is in the product. So product would be one of these pillars. And then you have these two pillars that are pretty weak and unbuilt. So you want to put it into the front end of your business all the time. You want to put the money into marketing. You could learn the skills of marketing and so on, but without people coming in, there's nothing else that you're going to learn after that. What I mean by that is that if you don't have any traction of people coming in, you're not going to know where your product has issues. You're not going to know how to do sales if you just never get any practice, never any at-bats. You never get up to the field. You never get a phone call that comes your way or a lead. So you want to put 90% of what you have into marketing. You might be having some thoughts right now too of that's probably too much, or I want to put it in this, I want to put it in that. There is nothing more to debate. You need people to know you exist, and that's the only thing you're fighting. So you can do some stuff for free. You can post on social media, and that also has something else that you need to overcome. You need to overcome the fear of not wanting to be seen, the fear of being judged, all this other stuff. You need to get over that and do social media as well. You can have no face channels, but in the end, all of these fall into marketing. So if you're putting 3K a month, if you're putting 3K per year, you can put it towards paid ads. You can put it towards your strategy. You can put it into social media content. You can put it into cold calling systems if you're selling B2B, and so on and so forth. So first, I would recommend putting it into marketing. And if you're selling SaaS, you should be putting it into Google Ads. And this won't be a tutorial on how to set up Google Ads, but I'll get into that into another video. But essentially what you need to know is that the difference between Google and Facebook, or we'll just say Meta, the difference between Google and Facebook is that Google is intent-based and Meta is disruption-based. And if you didn't figure out by now, Google intention-based means you're Googling for the problem you want to solve. Buy Nike shoes, SaaS for CRM, or local service provider for lawn care. This is an intention behind them looking out for a solution, versus Facebook and Instagram, where you have to go to somebody who doesn't know you, they're not even thinking about you, and you have to catch their attention and convert them afterwards. So you have disruption-based media and you have intent-based media, and you should be putting all your time and attention at the beginning without the skill sets. And even with a low amount of skill sets, you need to put all your time into Google and intent-based marketing. And that's where I would allocate my assets. I would put as much money as you can into Google. You can try Meta if you have some experience in that, in some fields of marketing, but if you have nothing, if you're like a typical web dev guy, did computer science, computer engineering, or whichever field you're in, and you want to go into SaaS, or if you even came from another industry, you came from logistics or something else and you want to start a SaaS, Google is going to be your best friend when you first start off, and that's why they have a crazy valuation. because people's intentions go into searching for solutions through Google. Now, some of you might have probably not done this math part at the beginning, but you would need to look into how you want to segment your expenses and resources. For example, if you didn't put out your expenses out, you don't know what your income and your expenses are, take them down, write them down, and figure out how much you can spend every month. A lot of people surprisingly don't do that, which surprises me. But you know your rent, you know your car, you know your food, most likely. Figure out what you can spend the rest of the time. And yes, there is a cost to this learning. It's the time or money. Because yes, you can invest it in the stock market, you can invest it in other asset classes, you could buy gold or do whatever, or even buy another home and rent it out. But if you are serious about changing your life, growing as a person, starting a business, and you're really passionate about it, you should look into getting the skill sets. And this is something where you need to have an internal dialogue within yourself. Okay, do I invest in traditional stuff and I'm not that serious about starting a business? Or am I dead serious about starting a business? I want to be an owner. I want to help people through my solution grow and have a team, take care of my team, and make changes in the world in a positive way. You can do that. And if you want to take that burden, because it is a burden, you're shouldering something you don't really have to shoulder. If you want to do it, then this is the easiest way for somebody who's like a pretty standard, normal person. This is what an average American, average Canadian would technically have and look like. Assuming you have no other income, you're living alone, no other support systems. This is how I would do it. And if you're not serious about business, it's not the time. But I'm here to help you. I'm here to help people who are serious about starting a business and people who want to make that leap forward. This is the best way to do it. Now, I want to get into one other thing, and I didn't expect to, but what I did early on is that I set a foundation to then take as much risk as I want. So I took, my expenses weren't exactly like this, but essentially my expenses, my income were not like this. So what I was doing is that I was investing until I could wipe off certain classes of expenses that I didn't need to have anymore. So I was investing everything for many years, and I was fortunate to have great income even when I was younger too. So I was like writing off these expenses. If I had my income of, let's say something flat, like it was 100 a year, I was making roughly that per year. So I did not want to touch my income of what I worked to bring in. I always cared about freedom. So I would always invest, and I was living at home for quite a bit of time, so I was able to save up quite a bit. So let's say I would put 40K into an index and into real estate stocks and even real estate. So let's say you had 40K, also you just return 6% a year. So that's $200 a month. And this is per year. So this would provide 200 a month at 6%. And this is what my income would essentially be added to, and it would compound every year. Every year, it'd have a little bit more income coming in. So even 200 reinvested would be 200, 201, 202, 205, 206, and it would go up and so forth. It would compound on itself. So a few years after that, by the time this grew to cover my car, cover my food, my going out expenses, and also covering what my mortgage ended up being. Then I was like, okay, I was happy to take almost everything I made and just shove it into my startup and skills, into my startup and into my education. And because I had everything else covered, I was like, okay, if everything else goes bad, then at least I have a place, at least I have a car, at least I have food, I can go out. I'm in a healthy mental position. I'm in a healthy standing position in my life where I can take all the risk I want because at least I have everything in my baseline covered. Now, wow, this is going to go on a tangent, but I'm going to also add this in here too. because this is something that some people need to consider as well, for why you guys are probably just so scared of taking any kind of risk. You need to get over your fear of risk, even without maybe doing the same strategy I did. This just worked for me based on how old I was, my income, my goals, my priorities, and how life happened. I feel like I did it okay. Obviously, everybody wishes they did other stuff better, but I'm happy with how I played out things. Now, whatever your situation is, you have to figure it out for yourself. This is just a typical way of structuring what you need to look at and where to put what you need to put. But you need to figure out your life for yourself. And this is what you need to realize why you're probably just scared all the time and you don't take risks. And when you think about spending $1,000, it's the end of the world to you. And you might even have 10K in savings, 5K in savings, even $2,000 in savings. And you're still afraid of putting $1,000 to learn a skill set that would help you improve, grow as a person, and in the end, make more money and you time, which is what really blows my mind, is why people don't invest in themselves a little bit more. $1,000, $2,000, $4,000. It's not going to change your life either. Even if you were to invest it in the stock markets, it would not amount to anything. That'd be less than $300 a year, which is like $30 a month. Like 4K is not going to do anything for your life. But growing a business will change your life. I'm just going to touch on this quick here, but if these needs aren't met, then you're not even going to bother going for something like business, which is a higher level game you're playing. If you're fighting for food and shelter and water, and you're not gymming, you're not eating well, you're not breathing air properly, you're stressed, you barely have clothes and all that stuff, starting a business is not the right time for that. You need to focus on other things at first. And there's a million other, I can go on tangents, but focus on this first. What I did is actually I made sure this is secure as well. Now that I had the personal security, I had the health and well-being, I had the stable environment, I had the financial security, and I set myself up with some safety nets. I had air, food, water, shelter. I have family, I have friends, I have somewhat of a community. I met my fiance, and I have groups at gyms, at people I know. I have all these needs met, and then I could, without a doubt, just start focusing on the top of the pyramid. Creativity, personal growth, development, pursuit of meaning, understanding, purpose, joy, action taking, self respect. And obviously, this helps grow with your confidence as well, reputation, acknowledgement, and everything. Like, you need to either not worry about these and just go straight into it, balls to the wall, for lack of a better term, or if you seriously are the type of person that cannot function otherwise, you need to have your baseline set before you start achieving higher levels of wisdom and higher levels of self-actualization through business and whatnot. And this is something you have to gauge for yourself. What do you want to fix? What do you want to improve? What do you have at your disposal to do it? Is there a way to make more money in the meantime? Can you get a second job? If you're doing 9 to 5, 60K a year, let's say you spend the whole thing every year, you still want to have 10K a year to put into your business and get a job, second job at Starbucks, a second job at Home Depot, at wherever, at a cafe. And if you just work one day, let's say you make 15 an hour, something pretty reasonable, 7.5 hours for one day a week. This is at one day a week. If you also work throughout the week as well, and you did 9 to 5, and then you work 2 hours at a cafe, 3 hours at a cafe, a couple days a week, you'd have an extra 10K to put into ads. You'd have an extra 10K to put into learning and education. And then you want to gauge these other factors. There's a lot of stuff to gauge at the same time. You have to balance a lot of things. But when you know what to balance, then you have the confidence and certainty to go forward with what you want to do. Gauge what you have, gauge how much time and your timeline. And then once you know your goals, what timeline you want to have, how much money you make, then you just invest accordingly. And then you start gaining the skills one at a time, maybe a few at a time. And then voila, you'll have a business that you'd be happy about that's growing and that you can start actually taking payments from people and you've completed the entire circle. I hope this was really insightful and I hope this helped you out. And I hope this also gave you some level of confidence. And I hope you take some level of action to actually figure out a plan of action for your business. This will give you all the stability you need to launch a successful startup and to grow as a person. And again, my name is Chris, and I'm going to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.